similar situation that Miss Tyler family went through. They're trying to say that, or
Right.
she can't learn or whatever, and then
That's
she's saying, I'm bored, I just might as well just get out and do my own thing, meaning do better than what I'm exposed to now. But through testing, you were
testing
able to
and find
find
the
out
child's
the importance.
interests. There's
Yes.
some
What are the
kids who
children
are just so
interests?
talented in art,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
is so important. Look at
Yes.
SCAD, Savannah
Oh my.
College of Art
Yes.
and
Yes.
Design.
Yes.
It's okay to be an
It
artist.
is.
Not every child is going to be an
Yes.
English teacher or a
Right.
lawyer,
Right.
and it's absolutely fine to bring out that side.
Yeah.
And so that's absolutely important, and schools need to address that for our kids.
Yeah, for sure. That's why exposure is so important,
Yeah.
to expose them to things and to find out what their passion is and what they love to do, so that you can help them. And we're just going to take a slice of time to talk about, because you're not the only one that remember lynching. There's so many others. And you also noted about these are still on South Carolina books. And what I've learned
Yeah.
is the law may not be active at the moment,
Right,
but because it's on the books, it can be
it's
activated anytime.
well,
And
it's
so
not
we
only
have to.
that, it's that people have grown up with that, and that's the way they think.
Uh-huh.
When what came, it was very interesting when they came up about the people eating the dogs.
Right.
Remember, that is a slant and a prejudice that was built into people around Asians and around other people, and people get that in their brain, and so they make these stories up. And indeed, it had nothing to do with the Haitian population that was in this Springfield, Ohio. And so that's my other interest, is bias and racism and how it persists. And you begin to think, she's not smart. What do they say about Kamala Harris? She's not smart. And then that woman got on TV and blew them away. She's smart for a Negro. She's not. And that concept is all about what we are not, but we are.
Right. And because of the narrative that they have been, or the propaganda that they have been given,
And it's
because
generational.
and because I have been in places and the lady is at awe. You speak so well. What would you expect? Because of the narrative, and it's their choice. You can choose to lock into that narrative that people of our pigmentation is this is how we supposed to be based on whatever you see on TV, or you can be honest and open and say no. That is not total truth.
Right.
And you're going to meet so many. And so when I see her, it's like she's still in awe that I can articulate and I can be with you and know how to conduct myself. I work because I volunteer, right? And I'm volunteering. It's like it's totally shift her mind, because she just felt that African Americans was just this lazy, whatever she
Because
heard.
that's what they had excuse. People had to make they had to lie to themselves, because holding people in bondage and seeing them as less than human is not a normal response.
No.
So you have to lie to yourself and tell yourself that. And that's what they've done, and keep that going. And so when you see someone like Kamala Harris, oh, she can't be black. That's why that whole thing about she just became black. The woman went to Howard.
Yes.
The woman was an AKA.
Yes.
How can you not be black going to Howard and being an AKA? She knew what she was at 18 years of age.
Yes.
So it's very fascinating to me to sort of see that and to hear that and to know that history. It's a fascinating. I mean, South Carolina is a fascinating state to me. We were mostly African American, and it was the 1940 census where the white population then outnumbered the black population.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
Not until 1940.
No.
I mean, can you? I mean, those kind of things just absolutely fascinating. That this pulpwood business was a major builder of this country, and that's centered here. You never hear about that from Jasper County, and that these people actually came in, and it was dangerous work, cutting trees. I know one of Granddaddy's relatives, Oliver's father, got killed doing this work.
Oh wow!
Yes. Right.
Oh wow!
So this was, I mean, you're cutting down trees. That's very dangerous work.
Right.
Right. And you still, I mean, I remember still seeing the trucks leaving, and they still cut wood and take, because it's this beautiful wood that actually builds this country.
Yeah. Oh
So
my! So we got to talk a little bit about
future.
lynching.
Oh yeah.
So, just have you experienced a person in your community? What do you want to surmise about lynching?
Well, my dad told me about the election.
Yes.
He said that he was, um, they were doing the canals,
Okay.
digging ditches.
Uh-huh.
He said, and he had to keep his head down
Mm-hmm.
in digging the ditches. He couldn't look up
Mhm.
because if he had looked up, he don't know what he would have did to him.
Mm-hmm.
But he saw when they pulled this man up in the big tree,
Mm.
and he said that his eyes was down, but then he had an eye up
Yeah, yeah.
to see rather
Mhm.
who he was.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said that he knew he was a white guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said that he saw a black guy there.
Mm-hmm.
Then he said another time he looked, he said the white guy was still standing there and the black guy was up.
Mm-hmm.
So he said that, yes, it was a black guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he still had to keep his head digging down in the ditch, doing his work.
Uh-huh.
Because if he had to look up, he don't know what would happen to him.
Yeah.
And he said that it was so horrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He said, because I know the man,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't say the word.
Right.
And that's what he told us about it. Richard, I got some of the things right down
Mm-hmm.
about what he was telling us about it.
Yes. Sir.
And then he said that he saw another man, they had thrown a rope around his neck,
Mm-hmm.
but he had a dog.
Mhm.
And this dog had come doing it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the man got away. You see, because if the dog didn't come there, you know that would have been a goner too.
Mm-hmm.
But the dog come.
Right. And so that concept of lynching it wasn't fair law. It
No.
was just a group of people that
It was
thought
good of people.
right that they had the legal right.
But the law turned their heads
Yeah.
and
Right.
allowed it to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
They didn't make them accountable.
they didn't
for
make them accountable for the act.
Mhm.
And lynching was not only hanging by a rope;
Mhm.
it was also shooting people. People
Mhm.
Yeah.
disappeared.
Shoot.
People,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fear that I remember Leroy knows talking about driving and getting stopped by the police and the fear they had about would they make it home.
Mhm.
So it and this is a fear that runs through. I'll tell you a funny story. So we lived in Pennsylvania, in a nice neighborhood. I lived off of City Line Avenue
Mhm.
in Wynwood, and my husband hadn't told me, but one of his friends was trying to get a top secret clearance because he worked at the nuclear place out Los Alamos, and so he'd given Everett as a reference. So one day I'm home and I got a big picture window and I see a car pull up
Mhm.
and four of these white guys in black suits come to the front door,
Mhm.
and I'm like, Everett, you better go home. I mean,
Yeah.
this is my fear.
Uh-huh.
This was basically the FBI coming to question him about his friend, nothing that he had done.
Uh-huh.
But as an African American woman,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you're living in this neighborhood, that's the first thing you
Right.
think. Not that
Yeah.
they're coming to get a clearance for this guy who's
Mhm.
now a chair of the Department of Chemical Engineering in Virginia.
Uh-huh.
No, you're thinking that they're coming
Mhm.
After you.
right.
Mhm.
Right. So it's just how we begin to think about things, and
Mhm.
it not only impacts the people who do it.
Mhm.
Well, my whole thing, it impacts us, but it also impacts their children
Mhm.
who grow up with this son of this, and I call it this concept of privilege,
Mhm. Mhm.
that I am going to be no matter what, and so I don't necessarily compete
Mhm.
with people like I don't have to compete with them,
Right.
and then we run circles
Mhm.
because we have always been taught we have to be
Mhm. 10 times better.
10 times better
Mhm.
and work harder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it does pay off, especially when we prove
Wrong.
the status quo, whoever that is, wrong. And so that's the joy as it relates to my children. And so we want to encourage you, don't let nobody label you.
No.
You have a responsibility though.
Mhm.
You can't be this wanting a handout. You got to we talked about people that grind. They want that property. They grind. They dig ditches. They do whatever they had to do for their families.
Mhm.
So we're not of the persuasion that you sit on the seat or do nothing.
No.
And then expecting people to give you.
Mhm.
If anybody deserves to be compensated, is our ancestors,
Yeah.
but they're not here. But those of you that are not doing anything, it's ludicrous to think that society owe you something. And so we thank you for the second part of The first part. I just had to capture some of that because it was so powerful and so needed. And so my brother's going to get ready to tune us out. But you have work to do. You have homework to do. Learn about your history. Sit down and let
Learn
them
about your
tell you
history.
walk to school, what all they went through. Sit
Yeah.
down and learn about your great grand people. Sit down and learn. Talk about it
And
so
how
you
this
can be
group of people
better.
came here as a group. You
Yes.
said it was 20 some odd
Yeah.
people.
work
And they
together.
got together. They said, we're going to come and we're going to buy land.
Yes.
And those family names, what is just fascinates me is to go to the census. This is written in history forever, that their names are in there.
Yes.
Who started this?
So now, what website? How did you get
Okay,
started?
so my daughter, who was in high school, had a project.
That was a
Okay.
project, senior class.
Well, yeah, it was I guess, a senior class project to tell the story of your family.
Okay, all right.
And so she came down and she had to go. We lived in Atlanta, and she had to go. The census, the national census, has
national census.
it's in Morrow, Georgia. But I will tell you how else I do this.
Okay.
In Morrow, Georgia, and she went, and in there are all of the census from forever.
Yes.
And African people of African descent were first included in 1870. Because remember, 1860, we were still slaves.
Uh-huh.
1870, we were free
Uh-huh.
and we were citizens. And so we were included in the census.
Uh-huh.
So she got a page out of the census,
Okay.
and she basically showed my grandfather's grandfather, and it would have his date of birth,
Mhm.
and it said 1851. Well, no, it didn't say what year. It was in 1870, and it said he was 19 years old.
Oh wow.
So I went back and did the numbers, and then who else was in the household?
Yeah.
And so we went through that, and then you could go from there on and just follow the census.
Okay.
So that got me real fascinated
Yes.
about the
Yes.
fact that in 1870, my family lived in Tillman.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then you go and the church that I grew up in, St. John, it was started in 1866.
Oh, okay.
St. Matthew,
Uh-huh.
1870. Okay.
Yes.
So it puts us here in this place
Yes.
in those years.
Yes. Yes.
So that's one way. So the big place to get this is the International History Museum, African American History Museum in Charleston.
Okay.
They have a whole floor that deals with genealogy
Okay.
and specific to South Carolina.
Yes.
So that's one way. The other is I joined Ancestry.com, and you
Okay.
can go back. Like I showed my father-in-law that his family, who were in West Virginia, actually came from Alabama.
Oh wow.
Right.
Yes.
So and the other thing is just to know history in general. So from Africa and the African trade, only 450,000 people of African ancestry came to the United States.
Okay.
Out of the 5 million people who were brought over from Africa, most went to the Caribbean and to other places. So we are descendant of only 450,000 people, and we're very close in terms of genetics. The other thing that sort of hit me is in 2013, I had the opportunity to go on a medical mission to Liberia.
Okay.
And Liberia is one of the West Coast countries. Liberia, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, all of them are there. Nigeria is a little bit further down. And I went, and Patricia, it was as if I had walked into church in Richland.
Really? Yeah.
The body language, the appearance of people was so similar and so close that it was as if these had to be relatives, somebody that I was descended from.
Yes.
The topography of the land. So slaves were picked and brought by what their talents were.
Yes.
So growing rice, and that's the same kind of land that we had. So they brought people who grew rice to the coast, indigo and cotton further in. And so that's how we got spread out. Most slaves weren't owned in big plantations. There were one or two people. So the fact that they came together from a land that there were a lot of Indians or Native Americans means to me that either they had been, They're free since 1865, and this is how they're making a living, and then come to this place when they hear about jobs. And it also fascinates me about that period of Reconstruction, because we also had a Black senator from South Carolina during Reconstruction, and then the end of Reconstruction.
Yes.
All of this is not taught. When I took
Yeah.
the only time I took South Carolina history is in third grade, and it was one Black person in the book and a
Yeah.
watermelon patch.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
here we were, more than 50% of the state. And in the Low Country, were more than 50% for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's the only inclusion that we have in South Carolina history books.
Know your history. Know your history. I thank you so much for letting us have a part two, a mini part two. But ladies, thank you.
This
Thank
is
you.
Wonderful. Thank you so
I
much.
promise we're going to air off and then till next time. But I am fascinated, and I want you to be fascinated. Enjoy who you are. Wear who you are well. Don't let nobody put you down because of the pigmentation of your skin or where you come from. Because where you come from does not change, not have an effect on where you're going to go. So you may, because we were all poor. I remember, but mothers, they didn't tell us that we were poor.
No.
Whatever we had, we kept it nice and clean. And so when Sunday come, they starch it and iron it. And we might be the same thing. We're wearing over and over again. But nobody knew because we took good care of it. And we walked proud. I can see my granny now. She would do like this, put that pocketbook under her arm, said, Patricia, let's go to church. And so they had pride. And so we just want to encourage you. You're standing on the shoulder of greatness. I'm close.